And yet another video here that we like to do every year. Seemingly almost every new season brings about new captains along with vacancies. The position traditionally given to the player who displays the best leadership abilities seems to have a decent amount of turnover, giving us another topic to touch on. In this video, we're going to go over a few captains that could be losing their Cs here shortly. And with that, here are 3 NHL captains who could be losing their captaincy very soon. After missing a significant amount of playing time, Jonathan Toews returned to game action last fall after battling CIRS. The captain, upon returning to play, however, came back to a team that had changed drastically since he departed for the hiatus. Despite going into the season with optimism, after signing names such as Marc-Andre Fleury and Seth Jones, the mood in the Windy City quickly took a turn for the worse. As the Blackhawks were made to atone for their past atrocities, longtime GM was let go of his position, and it wasn't long after that head coach Jeremy Carlton was fired due to the team's very slow start on the season. For Toews, who was an instrumental piece in the Hawks' previous dynasty, it hasn't been an easy adjustment to witness a dramatic cultural shift. Shortly before the regular season's end, Toews made some telling comments indicating that he isn't completely on board with Chicago's intent to rebuild. First, he commented on the Brandon Hagel trade, which sent the forward to Tampa, saying, "Now all of a sudden you realize no one on our team is safe, and we could all be going in different directions in the near future. It's pretty discouraging," Toews says. And then, days after, he elaborated further on his comments on the future by saying, "For the longest time, the thought never entered my mind to leave Chicago. And in this case, you can't help but picture yourself and what it'd be like to play for another team and what the experience would bring. That pops into your mind," he says. I'll link the sources to the full interviews down below, but the overall sentiment here is that, theoretically, for the first time since receiving captaincy in 2008, Toews would be without the role next season, even though he does have a full no-move clause on his contract. If an offer came about and the Hawks were able to find a third-party team to eat some of his salary, Toews could be on the move sooner rather than later. Ever since Big Z departed from Beantown, the captaincy logically went to Patrice Bergeron. One of the hardest working players in the league, Bergeron, for nearly 2 decades now, has been representing Boston with class. However, after winning a Stanley Cup with the club and receiving a slew of individual awards throughout his career, the captain's future with the B is now in question. As a current pending UFA, Bergeron is set to hit free agency here this summer. Even though he has been asked about contract negotiations, the 36-year-old has remained pretty tight-lipped regarding his predicament. "I'm going to play out this year and then talk about that after. I think it'd be useless of me to think about the future," he says. Since the postseason is currently underway, however, many can't help but think that this could be the last dance for the longtime captain. While some speculate he could retire officially as a Bruin, others believe it's entirely possible that the forward could be signing elsewhere. Jim Murphy from Boston Hockey Now, for instance, states that his sources have indicated that if Bergeron is given the opportunity of testing free agency, several teams will have interest, and logically so. However, at the front of the pack will likely be the Montreal Canadiens. As a Quebec native, not only has ties to the Habs' home province, but also to their current GM Kent Hughes. Bergeron, similarly to Chris Letang, had Hughes as his agent prior to the Montreal native securing the GM position. Even though Bergeron has already left a legacy in Boston, it still is possible that he could re-up there instead. And lastly, the final cap on this list is longtime Red Wing Dylan Larkin. After being selected by Detroit in 2014, Larkin has been a consistent source of offense for the club. Even though the likelihood, in my opinion, for Larkin to move on is slimmer than the other picks on this list, I still thought it would be interesting to ponder the captain's current situation. Currently in his prime at 25 years of age, Larkin is one of the few that's been on his team since Henrik Zetterberg played his last game. Meaning that, since he was drafted, the team went through some dramatic shifts culturally, and has fully embraced at this point what it means to start from scratch. Well, almost that is. Larkin along with Tyler Bertuzzi are a step ahead of the game and at a different point in their careers than, say, Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider, 2 players that will definitely be at the forefront of GM Steve Yzerman's list to keep on the roster looking forward. Larkin, who has 1 more year left on his contract, has a no-trade clause on it that's set to kick in for the start of next next season. With an AAV of $6.1 million, Larkin could be an attractive piece to bargain with for Yzerman at this year's draft. However, Larkin has demonstrated a willingness to remain in the Motor City. As he recently said during exit interviews, "I really love being a Red Wing, and I love being the captain of the team, and I think this team is going to do special things in the near future." As I mentioned before, the prospect of Larkin switching teams isn't high on my mind, but when it came down to it, he seemed more likely than his other peers in that regard to move on in the league. Knowing the previous deal Yzerman has made regarding Anthony Mantha and Jacob Vrana, we can at least say that the GM isn't afraid to clean house.